And I'll share my screen here. Good morning. Looks like we got one or two more joining us here. I'll post the link to the slides again one more time. All right, I'll share my slides here. So welcome back to day 3. Hopefully you've been enjoying the past couple of days, learning a few things about content integration. So far, kind of day 1 looked at like why computer science integration, how it helps students, our beliefs about it, and then kind of breaking down standards and looking for connections. Day 2 is kind of about putting those pieces together, finding some areas of overlap, making some decisions about how computer science is going to fit in. Today, we're going to kind of look at more or less putting the project together, kind of looking at an overview of the project, how we want it to look, how we want it to function and go. We're going to look at some things called like frames for a project and different structures a project can take. So we're kind of wrapping it up. Our hope is that by the end of this course, you can have your own computer science integration project. Not something fully fleshed out, for daily lesson plans, but just kind of an overview about your goals for that project, how you kind of want it to be set up, and how you want it to progress. So with that, this is our 3rd day. We kind of wanted to just take some time to check in and see how everyone's doing. We have a Jamboard here with a spot where we can share kind of some thoughts and questions and how we're feeling. I will post a link to the Jamboard in the chat, but let me just show it real quick here. So on the Jamboard, there's a spot to kind of check in with how you're feeling. So we can use the post-it notes and make a little sticky note for how you're feeling. So this top part is the why for CS integration. So how are you feeling in regards to why integrate computer science, right? How are you feeling in terms of like finding overlap between CS and content areas? And then how are you feeling with like different levels of CS integration? So these are kind of some of the big things we've talked about so far. I'll give you a minute for just thinking about where you'd want to place your post-it note. Let me post a link to the chat here, a link to the Jamboard in the chat. And then we can take a few minutes to just kind of check in and see how everyone's doing. So as you're posting, maybe be thinking about if you want to share kind of why you chose to place the post-it where you did. And then we can share out in just a minute or two as everyone has a chance to post. Is everyone able to get to the Jamboard all right? It looks like we see some post-it notes being added there and moved around. It's probably a good sign. I'm seeing a lot of variety where post-it notes are going. Looks like for why CNS integration, a lot of people are feeling very comfortable with that, which is probably a good thing. In terms of finding areas of overlap, different levels of CS, we see mostly somewhats, a couple not varies, a couple varies. So it's nice that we have kind of a range. Let's just kind of go through each question here. It'd be nice if we could have a couple people share out for why you placed the post-it where you did. Let's maybe just start at the top there, the why for CS integration. It looks like pretty much everyone is posted towards the very comfortable end. Does anyone want to share why you feel comfortable with computer science integration or finding the why for it?
I can go. I feel like the why is part of the reason that I signed up for this course is because I did kind of understand the importance of it, especially in the role that we're in is focused on STEM, and this is one of the topics that comes up often when teachers are asking us for some help. So I think that in addition to what we've learned about the why here and what we've discussed, it was part of the reason that I joined the course. So.
Well, it's good to hear. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, thinking about this as a professional development course in the middle of the summer, right? So thinking about who's going to sign up for this course, probably people who feel pretty strongly about it. So thanks for sharing that. Anyone else want to share about maybe their why or why you put your post on the very comfortable end?
One other reason why I, think that integrating computer science is important is just because of where the workforce world is headed. I heard a statistic, and I'm probably not going to remember the numbers accurately, but it was in regards to the amount of jobs that were out there last year related to computer science, coding, that kind of thing, versus the amount of students that graduated in Minnesota with that kind of degree. And it was like less than a third of the students were graduating versus the amount of jobs that were out there. So I think it's important that we expose our students, that we teach our students intentionally these skills and make them aware of the job opportunities that are out there related to computer science.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a statistic from code.org that says something along the lines of like 80% of new jobs in the field of STEM are related to computing. And just thinking about that too, like even expanding that a little bit, not even if students necessarily go on to major in computer science or get a degree in it or a job in like specifically coding or something. Think about if you want to be like a veterinarian or something, like these computer science skills are still going to be helpful no matter kind of where you choose to go, for sure. So think about like how technology is kind of becoming a part of everything now, right? So yeah, definitely knowing about how technology works and things like that. It looks like Andrea posted in the chat some statistics for the state of Minnesota from code.org if you want to check those out. Yeah, for sure.
I'll just speak on behalf. I know I've got a few other Bloomington people here in this cohort. In Bloomington, we're very fortunate. We have a CS for All initiative, kind of a deal specifically at 2 schools of our 10 elementaries that are sites that have a computer science integration model, immersion model. And so it's fun to be a part of that. And so in my position in particular, it's just really exciting. And kind of like what a couple people have already said, just the future and how important computer science skills in general, not just specifically to careers that are focused that way, but I've even got a son heading off to college here in just about a month or so, and he's, tech savvy enough as any, but it's interesting to see how already even the generation he's in kind of sees people who are more computer programmers or aren't, or that kind of thing. And so I'm excited to be a part of something in Bloomington that helps kids understand that it's for everyone. It's not just a particular career path or track that you're on that needs to learn these skills. So I think that's a really neat thing to be part of.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for sharing that. I think we heard an example, I think maybe Andy or someone who shared using the pair programming in math too. So just how, some of these processes that we use in computer science can be really helpful no matter what you're doing, for sure. Cool, thanks for sharing. Let's go ahead and look at the second question here, the finding areas of overlap between computer science and content area standards. Here it looks like we had a little more of a mix of people from the maybe towards the not very end of the spectrum of being not very comfortable towards the very comfortable end. Would anyone like to share out why you placed your post-it where you did here on the area of finding areas of overlap?
Good morning, everyone. I will share. So I was in between somewhat and very because I feel like I have a really good grasp on standards. I've done a lot of unpacking of standards in my past few years. So I've done that work, so it feels comfortable for me. But then sometimes I get into a spiral of, do these two standards really connect, or am I trying to force them? Sometimes you just kind of like get in, you overthink standards sometimes, and it's hard to really like pinpoint, yes, it is an overlap, or no, I'm trying to force something that's not there. So that's always kind of my struggle when I'm trying to integrate different subject areas.
Yeah, I think I can connect to that pretty well. You can take any two standards and fit them together, right? But is it more like a natural fit or a force fit? And one thing I found interesting too is I've found a couple times I've tried a project where in my brain as like the teacher, I think there's a great fit there. And then as I try it with students, it doesn't seem like the students kind of see that same connection there too. So I think sometimes you just got to kind of try it and see how it goes, Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
I'll add kind of to what Gretchen said. I put my post-it on the very because I've spent probably the last 3 years really doing some of this work and looking at the standards. And I often sit down in like a coaching session with teachers and we'll just brainstorm ideas, and they'll say like, how are you able to like come up with these ideas so fast? And I always just am like, growth mindset here, practice. Like I have been looking at these I have more familiarity with the CSTA standards now than I did 3 years ago. And so it's just, I really do think it's something that just takes practice, and the better you know the standards and the more examples you've seen, the more you can start to generate your own. And so I really like that we've been given time to do that work in this course, because that is what like gets you to a point where you can just kind of start to generate ideas pretty quickly when you look at sets of standards. So
Cool, thank you for sharing that. Definitely agree with that. You have to kind of just experience it, see other people's what they've tried. Maybe sometimes like another person's idea of one project can lead to a couple more ideas and doing it a different way. So for sure, that idea of kind of just sharing and connecting is huge. Would anyone else like to share why they placed their post-it where they did for finding areas of overlap? All right, let's go ahead and look at the last question then, the different levels of CS integration. So in day 2, we kind of had a visual of an iceberg with thinking about some more surface levels of computer science integration, where you're kind of just tacking on like a computer science project at the end or product at the end, and then some more deeper levels of integration where there's a really kind of strong connection there, and you kind of learn more about both the content area standards and the computer science area standards together. And it kind of allows you to explore new ways. And again, I really, anytime I want to talk about this, I really want to reiterate that there's not like one right or wrong answer, right? Like if you're just starting out and you have kids dive into the very deep end, it might be a struggle, right? But if you only live in the little more shallow end, you're not pushing as far as you can. So just to be clear, there's no kind of right or wrong way, but when you're aware that there's different levels, it helps us kind of be more intentional. Here I see a lot of different post-its in very different spots on this question. I'd love to hear just a few reasons why you kind of placed the post-its where you did, if anyone would be willing to share out.
I can share. I put mine on the very unlike, or I think it's very, not very, just because I haven't not done anything with computer science. I don't know anything about Scratch yet, code.org. Like I am very basic, very new. So I think this year, maybe by the end, I'll feel a lot more comfortable, but I'm just surface level right now, just swimming, trying to stay afloat.
Yeah, it's definitely a great place to get started, 'cause sometimes it can take a lot of courage to jump in. Computer science can seem so big and overwhelming, but you just kind of got to get started and take it one step at a time. So thanks for sharing that. And hopefully, we can help you find ways to get more comfortable and get some ideas and share some things as we keep working together. Thank you. Would anyone else like to share why you placed your post-it where you did on that different levels of CS integration question? I bet we can get one more if we kind of wait long enough. Let's have one more person share. How about that? Put a little pressure on.
Okay, I'll share again. I was kind of in the middle, just because I definitely think there's great opportunity in the deeper level of integration, but it's a hard thing to get to, because it takes such great knowledge of the students and where they're at, and it also takes I think a deeper level of computer science understanding, and so it's hard to get teachers there. You've really got to get buy-in and have some, I think, professional development or some coaching with teachers before you can really get to that one. And then you really have to lean on their knowledge of their students and what they've been doing in computer science and that type of thing. And because I think when you go to a teacher and say, we're going to teach your standard, just your standard, but instead of a PowerPoint like they used to do, they're going to do a scratch animation. That's a pretty, teachers can get on board with that, because you're still kind of their content is up on the pedestal. That's the goal. But then when you try to start to integrate actually a computer science standard as the content, we're actually going to teach about whatever it might be in addition to your standard, then it just takes a little more buy-in and a little more savviness in terms of how the teacher and the whoever's supporting kind of get that done.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for sharing that. I think, the more we can do to kind of help people feel comfortable taking those first steps and entering in and seeing that it's not some giant scary thing, but it can actually be a really fun way to kind of do something. I think that's definitely helpful to get people on board for sure. That idea of how you get coworkers on board and build that sustainability piece as you go is huge. Well, thank you for sharing. I think so. For now, we can flip over. There's a second page in that Jamboard, and we want to just take a little bit of time to kind of check in on how you are doing with your own integration project. So throughout the last couple of days, and a lot of the asynchronous work has been kind of developing your own integration project, from identifying standards, breaking them apart, trying to find connections, and kind of putting the pieces back together. And we want to just take a few minutes to kind of check in and see how that's going, right? How, what questions are coming up? Is there anything you're finding a little bit challenging or maybe unclear that you want to ask about? Or what successes have you found too? So if anyone wants to share kind of how their project's going a little bit, or maybe just a brief sentence about what your idea is or what you're thinking about. The idea that we were talking about earlier, just kind of sharing ideas with one another, building ideas for different projects. Let's take a few minutes to just kind of put some Post-its up there. So the Jamboard's split up into 3 areas: either questions that you may have about the asynchronous work, any challenges that you've been facing there in the middle, or any successes or ideas you'd like to share towards that right side. So just take a couple minutes to put some Post-its here, and then we'll check in and share out about how we're doing with the asynchronous work too.
And again, no pressure if you haven't had a chance to get started yet. This could just be related to your ideas about what we've covered during our live sessions as well. Just kind of wanted to check in with you and offer any support, and welcome sharing as well.
While we're talking about the asynchronous work here and giving a minute just to fill out these Post-its, just a quick reminder, you do not have to get these done in the 3 days or 4 days that we have together in the live time. I think we have set a couple weeks after the course to be able to get some of this work done. I believe August 7th was that date. And that date is just to be able to submit the work for any feedback or ideas, suggestions, things like that. Even after August 7th, you'll still have all access to all the resources and things like that. So there's no pressure with that asynchronous work. You may want to take some of the ideas we've suggested and kind of change it a little bit and do it in your own way, and that's totally fine too. We know it kind of everybody has their own way of thinking and planning and developing. So the templates we're suggesting is just that, right? It's just kind of a suggestion. Definitely make it work for you in your own area and your own preferences as well. We'll give maybe like another minute or so to put some post-its up. It's cool to see some of the thoughts and ideas. Looks like some people are finding success for getting some ideas of how the project could get going. See maybe some challenges of finding areas of overlap for sure. It can definitely be hard to do. See some good questions there. We'll take a minute to maybe just share out loud and talk through a couple of these. And just a reminder, we have those office hours as well. If we don't get to like one of your questions or challenges here, feel free to drop in there and we could talk through some things or email as well. Let's look at maybe a couple of the questions that have come up. Would anyone like to share their question out loud or ask the question to kind of throw out to the group and get some ideas?
I can start. So my question is, what computer science program is best for making commercials / ads? I did a unit last year where we watched a bunch of different commercials and we analyzed them, figured out who the audience is and how long they were and what was the musical impact of it. So is Scratch best for that? Code.org? Like what, if I'm making a 30-second, or they're making a 30-second commercial ad using music, what programs are best that I should be looking into?
Does anyone have any thoughts or ideas around that?
What's the grade level?
5th grade. I'm thinking 5th grade right now.
In our district, especially with distance learning this past spring, I learned how to use WeVideo and absolutely fell in love with it. It is super user friendly. And I don't know if we got a paid subscription or if it was like free for educators for a while, because I know a lot of companies were doing it. But I know they have a free version, but it is so user friendly and super easy. And I was very nervous to learn how to use it, but within like maybe an hour or so, I was off and running, and then it's a great platform.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, Gretchen. We do have the paid version in Bloomington, but that's an excellent resource.
Thank you. This sounds cool.
If you're looking to have kids do some element of programming, and so WeVideo is just a educational technology. It's like iMovie, but for Chromebooks and things like that. So kids can use it on any device, but it'll have more of a professional look when you're finished, but you can use Scratch for everything. So I'll throw Scratch out here for this one. You could definitely use Scratch. The big difference is going to be that Scratch, the kids are going to program it. So it's going to, versus WeVideo is just going to be a drag and drop for like their the video snippets and things that they've created. So it just depends what you're looking for.
Another drag and drop option, I know it's not a computer science answer maybe necessarily, but BrainPop has a really cool feature called Make a Movie where kids can drag and drop different BrainPop clip art videos and features and make their own little mini movie. We did that with 3rd and 4th and 5th grade last year. And I was also going to comment, I like whoever put that note about waiting for the announcement. It's kind of the elephant in the room right now, I'm guessing, throughout this course is our uncertainty about what we are doing in fall and how that looks, and of course, to what degree, what capacity we'll have to integrate computer science or whatever our roles might be, just how those might change depending on the announcement. Someone put the big "I hear you" post-it note. That wasn't me, but I was about to put another one just like it next to it. So.
Yeah, for sure. For those who haven't heard, the Minnesota Department of Education has, kind of expected or said they expect to make an announcement in late July and what the fall might look like. So we're kind of all just waiting to see what that looks like for sure. Yeah, and thinking through that content process product piece, a lot of the stuff might be able to be done online in some way, but yeah, it determines everything, right, for this upcoming school year. So for sure. Would anyone like to share, maybe we could do challenges or successes together? Share maybe a challenge that you faced or a success that you've had during this time.
I'll just throw out my success because it ties to the elephant that's in every room. But honestly, I've kind of just taken this as an opportunity to step away from the uncertainty of the fall, and a lot of the planning I've been doing this summer is all around well, how are we going to do this online, and how are we going to do this and this and this and this and this, and this is a really great opportunity to just go back to this work and do something unrelated specifically to distance learning, and just kind of I don't know, it's kind of invigorated me a little bit of oh yeah, even underneath all the coronavirus craziness, there's still really great opportunities that we can give kids, and this is exciting work. So that's just been my success, just kind of ignoring the late July announcement for a couple days.
Yeah, for sure. And we've heard, a few stories of a lot of teachers who have been intimidated to try any kind of technology piece before, that have been kind of forced into that role, and now are kind of excited to bring some of those aspects back into the classroom, right? At my school, we've had quite a few students who, I guess, traditionally struggled more or less with kind of peer interactions in the classroom, that just succeeded with flying colors kind of in the distance learning format, where they could just focus on the academics. So thinking through, as big of a challenge as this is, how are we learning new processes and procedures that might be beneficial whenever we do wind up back in the classroom, for sure.
I can share. So my two questions or challenges were about just kind of assessment, actually, because I think about that a lot when we're talking about integration, since if student, and I know a lot of you are in a situation where students know how to use Scratch really well already, so that's not necessarily a big problem, but I worry about if students are learning how to use Scratch as a tool and they're supposed to demonstrate understanding of a different subject area, is the tool going to hold them back from being able to do that? I know in a lot of situations, the tool is actually so engaging and helpful for students who might be challenged in a different kind of academic context, that maybe it's useful. But I also I struggle with how do we get students to a base level understanding of Scratch so that they really can demonstrate understanding in that tool of a different subject area. And that's kind of a big ask. And so, especially for teachers. So I just kind of grapple with that sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely a great thing to think about with, if you had a chance to dive into that Tomlinson model of content, process, product a little bit. One thing that she says with the model is that you don't want to have two of those areas be new at the same time, because then it could just kind of feel overwhelming, right? And I think that also kind of connects with that play, tinker, make, engineer part too. If we're asking students to make something with a new tool about a new piece of content they're learning, and the first thing I have to do is engineer something really challenging with it, it could be a lot, right? So yeah, it's definitely a great thing to think about. And I don't think there's any perfect answer for that, because you could take time out of what your own teaching to do that, but that takes time, right? You could try to connect with another teacher, subject area, maybe, to kind of learn Scratch together. So I think there's a lot of ways you could potentially go about that. Does anyone else have any thoughts or ideas about how you could potentially kind of approach that challenge?
I think thinking through like a progression of where you're going to start the year and where you want to end the year in terms of the skill base. And I was thinking about what Hannah said, that like the tool that you're going to choose should maybe think about how that tool fits into your whole plan for the year of building those computer science skills. And I love what Annie said, that like Scratch is going to get you into programming as opposed to just making videos. And so you're going to be integrating the computer science skills, but and this is the thing that, the reason I'm talking about this is the question I'm thinking too, is if I have a project that I'm planning, what skills do kids need to be successful to complete that project at the end? So how do you go backwards and make sure that they've done some low level things like Dan mentioned that give them lots of success so that they have that skill set at the end to really make a successful project. Yeah, so that's what I was thinking about.
A parallel that I was drawing, oh, I'm sorry, I don't mean to speak over someone. I'll be quick. A parallel that I was drawing is, so my teaching background, I'm a teacher of English learners. So my teaching license is in ESL, I have a master's in ESL, and just thinking about the ways that sometimes we ask students to use a lot of language when actually the goal is to demonstrate understanding of, like, let's say science knowledge, right? And that the assessment then shouldn't be about the language piece, but should be about the content piece, and that it requires some sometimes alternative forms of or additional forms of being able to demonstrate content knowledge. So I wonder about if the assessment is about the content area standard, or if the assessment is about certain things, content and CS wise, how we might really isolate those in our assessment. And yeah, there will certainly be struggles. Computer science brings new challenges, of course, but also brings new opportunities. So just thinking about this is something that I think we've seen in other areas, and how might we learn from some of the assessment pieces that we're doing, with English learners, for example, in my lens, I guess, to understand how assessment can really hone in on just the things that we're looking to assess. And how can we support students to be able to achieve those? Which wasn't an answer to your question, but more a restating of the question. I apologize, but I'm processing.
One of the things, Brian, that we tend to do to kind of help with students gain tool fluency, so that it can grow as their content knowledge grows. Okay, 1 minute. Okay. Is we like to assign grade levels one tool, one CS tool, and then we like to set a baseline experience that all students will have. Maybe it's just an hour of code. I mean, really like baseline. So that way, at least teachers who are trying to integrate and doing things, they can say, okay, I know that all students have seen this platform, have done a loop on this, or whatever that might be. So for example, the 6th grade curriculum that we're developing right now, the tool is microbit. So we're going to limit it in that way to help, so that wherever students are doing integration, it's with that tool, so that slowly by the end of the year, teachers can kind of make some assumptions on their level of fluency with that tool, because they know that they've been using that, and that's helpful. And I know that it's not great, because it's great for kids to see computer science in a ton of different mediums in different ways, but hopefully over the course of time they do that. But it just simplifies them being able to focus on their content area if it's not always being introduced with a new tool.
I love that you're getting everybody at your school on the same page though too around your program. Like if you're a 3rd grade teacher, make sure they've mastered Scratch in this way before, so that the 4th grade teacher can leverage that, right? That's I mean, I'm super impressed that you've got everybody on the same page.
So to clarify, that statement would only be true in our computer science immersion schools. So those are schools that, I mean, they wear computer science t-shirts. They have intense training. So yeah, district wide, we're working on it, and we're Lee mentioned computer science for all, where that means every kid in the district. We're working towards that, but we're not. It's not as well of an oiled machine at every site, but
yeah, reality, right? Yeah.
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 Cool. Well, thank you so much for sharing these thoughts and ideas and discussion. This is, these are definitely huge discussions that are great to keep having and have in mind. And they're kind of ongoing discussions, right? Looking at some of our post-its on our Jamboard, we definitely didn't get to all the questions or challenges people shared. Definitely want to honor those if we can. There's a couple spots you could continue those. In our Canvas course, we have one spot called just questions, I think, or course questions, something like that. We check that a couple times a day, and we'll continue to do so even after these live courses. So feel free, if you have a question that you'd like to throw out to the group, you could post it on that Canvas course under the questions part. There's also a spot for idea sharing too, where we can share some ideas to spark one another too. So definitely encourage you to kind of keep these conversations going. And we could use the Canvas course. Again, we have those office hours, or email would be a good chance to do that too. So please don't hesitate to reach out or share if you still have some questions. That's definitely part of what we're here to do, right? Is try to figure out and think through those. So thank you so much for engaging in this. For the rest of the time, we have like a discussion activity we want to do to kind of look at some examples. Andrew, do you want to lead us through that one?
Yeah, absolutely. And I see that there's one of the questions is asking if there's a resource database with examples of fully integrated CS lessons. Part of our work in the next kind of chunk of our live session here today will be to look through some examples, and a few of the links that we're going to share with you are very wide, a variety of lessons and examples. So it's a link that takes you to kind of a bigger resource. So we hope that these will be helpful for you, and then also we'll compile them into one resource page that we'll share with you tomorrow. So keeping that in mind as one possibility. Also, the cohort that we facilitate through Code Savvy, our MNCodes cohort, each of our teachers develops a computer science integrated unit, and that is shared in a database, which we have linked in our next activity as well. We've got kind of our pilot database that we just redid our database. We've got our pilot data in there, so it's not all of the resources we have, but that can be, the kind of entirety of it can be found on our website. So a couple of options just to give us surface level answers to that question. All right, so let me just share my screen real quick, and we can go over what the discussion will look like, and then we can get started. Here we go. All right. So for our discussion task today, what we wanted to do is get together in smaller groups and invite you to take a look at one. I have a feeling one is the max we're going to get to today, and that's totally okay. One or two computer science integration examples, and then reflect on how those kind of match up with your own kind of reasoning rationale for CS and your desired level for CS integration. So we've got kind of some discussion questions there, and what we're thinking is that you could choose a slide on a shared slideshow here, and that we could use these slides as a place to jot down notes and reflections. Here we go. So we've got on this slide deck, which is just linked off of our kind of slides for today, and we'll drop the direct link in the chat. This is where the resources are, or some of the examples are. You can take a look at whichever one sort of jumps out to you the most, but maybe decide in your group the one that you want to focus on, and then choose a slide and reflect. And here are those reflection questions. And this is editable. You'll just hop in and be able to edit. And we're hoping to do about, we're going to cut it close. We're hoping to do about 15 minutes in our small groups here, so that you can really get a good start at looking at one of these examples, and then we'll just have a couple minutes at the end to share. Any questions about this activity or our discussion? All right, I'm pasting a direct link to that slideshow in the chat. And I will break us up into breakout groups now. We'll see you in about 15 minutes. Here you go, breakout groups. Okay, we're going to do four different breakout groups, and we'll have 3 participants per room. And here we go. Sorry, team, I'm sure probably pulled you away before you were ready. Hope you got a chance to dig in just a little bit. All right, sorry for the abrupt stop there. Hopefully you got a chance to dig in a little bit. I know it's always like a time warp to come back. So just want to give a chance for teams that would like to share out, even if it's just like a 1 sentence reflection or reaction, connection, question, any of that, just to hear kind of your initial thoughts here.
I guess we can go.
Sure.
We're on slide 3, the conservationists. Woo! So we found a scratch that was all about, there was a bunch of different items and students have to move the items in the compost bin, recycling bin, or trash bin. And like this activity, you could expand on it in so many different ways. You could look at your school's own recycling, trash, compost. My school is terrible. We have styrofoam we throw away. We have plastic, tons of it. The recycling is usually just thrown in the trash. It's so bad. So this would be awesome. And as a music teacher, I was even thinking I could add different tones. So the trash can could, when an item goes in it, maybe it sounds sad or mad, but when there's something that goes in the recycling, it sounds happy, and you could talk about tonality and major, minor. So there's so many ways that you could go about this activity.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you for sharing about that. Is there one other group that wants to give us just a real brief reflection or connection? That's okay, no worries. We have that time set aside tomorrow in our live session where we'll be able to kind of dedicate time to whatever else we want to talk about. And if it's that we want to just spend that entire time dedicated looking at examples, that's totally okay. If it's that we want to hone in on one example together and look at that, we can do that as well. So just to let you know that that's coming up tomorrow. To give you a preview of what's to come today, so just a reminder, you've got kind of a focus in on our learn, engage, and create. For day 3, it's about project structures and different ways kind of that projects can flow from having minimal constraints to more constraints, and just the ways that can work, as well as ways that you can frame up a project using different ideas like project-based learning or Maker Ed, that kind of thing. Our create task today is just creating a roadmap for your own project. And just a reminder, these don't have to be done today. They're just kind of chunked into day 3. And then reflection. As Tom mentioned, we do have in each day's Canvas course, in each day's Canvas module, sorry, we do have like a questions and troubleshooting spot. Feel free to drop any of your questions there, as well as an idea sharing spot as well. I'd just love to hear from you. Today's office hours are at 1 o'clock. Feel free to drop in tomorrow. Just a reminder that we're reversed. So tomorrow in the morning from 8:30 to 9:30, we'll have optional office hours. And then our live session will be tomorrow from 1 to 2:30. So just to give you a little more time to work and continue to dig in. And then tomorrow afternoon, we'll see if it works in your schedule for our last live session. All right, well, it's 9:30. We'll stay on here a couple more minutes if you have any other lingering questions. Otherwise, we'll see you on the course, and we'll see you tomorrow if it works for you, or office hours today. Thanks again so much, everybody, for your sharing and your ideas and your questions. Really appreciate those. And we'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks.